Ryan Carter had no idea what he had just walked into. The grand halls of the Zyphorian palace stretched endlessly, their towering pillars glowing with a faint golden light. Ryan had been part of the human delegation, invited to discuss trade relations with the Zyphorian Empire, but after a long, exhausting meeting, he had wandered off. The palace was a maze of corridors, each leading to places that looked equally impressive and intimidating. One moment, he had been admiring the intricate alien artwork on the walls, and the next, he had stepped through a large archway with strange symbols carved into it. The moment he crossed the threshold, a faint hum filled the air, like energy vibrating around him. The walls pulsed, as if sensing his presence. The temperature dropped slightly, and Ryan felt an uneasy chill run down his spine. Something was different about this place. Then he saw her. Standing at the far end of the dimly lit chamber was a woman, not just any woman, but a Zyphorian princess. He had seen her before during the delegation's formal introductions, Princess Xyra. Her violet eyes widened in absolute shock. Ryan barely had time to process what was happening before she took a step back, her expression shifting from surprise to something close to fear. "How did you get in here?" Xyra's voice was sharp, her tone demanding an answer. Ryan blinked, glancing around. "I had walked in." She looked utterly stunned. "That's not possible." Xyra's hands clenched into fists, her long, silver-white hair flowing as she moved toward him. "No one, except those of royal blood, can enter this chamber." Ryan frowned, confused. "Well, I don't think your door got the memo." Her expression hardened. "This isn't a joke, human. You shouldn't be here." The walls behind Ryan suddenly glowed brighter, the strange alien symbols shimmering with golden energy. Xyra's sharp gaze darted toward them, her breath catching in her throat. Ryan looked over his shoulder, then back at her. "Okay, what's going on?" Before she could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed from the hall. "Princess, are you all right? We heard." The moment the Zyphorian guards saw Ryan standing inside the forbidden chamber, their expressions twisted in rage. One of them instantly reached for his plasma blade. "A human has defiled the sacred chamber. He must be executed immediately." Ryan froze. "Wait, what?" Xyra hesitated for just a second, then lifted her hand. "No." Her voice was firm. The guards stopped in their tracks, confused by the order. Ryan exhaled slowly. This just got way more complicated than he expected. The guards stood in utter confusion, their hands still gripping their weapons, as they stared at their princess. The tension in the room was thick, and Ryan could feel the heat rising from the glowing symbols on the walls. He felt strangely exposed, as if the very chamber itself was alive and aware of his presence. Princess Xyra's gaze didn't leave him as she took a step forward, her expression hardening. "I don't know how you managed this, but you need to leave. Now." Ryan opened his mouth to argue but stopped when he saw something flicker in Xyra's eyes. Curiosity. Despite the anger, something in her demeanor suggested that she didn't want him gone, at least not yet. I didn't mean to intrude," Ryan said, trying to keep his voice calm. "I was just exploring the palace. But then I ended up here, and now I don't know how to get out." Xyra took a deep breath, and with a wave of her hand, the guards reluctantly lowered their weapons. They exchanged uncertain glances, but none dared to challenge her authority. Ryan couldn't help but notice the strange power Xyra held in this room. The chamber didn't just belong to her because of her royal title. It was as if it had accepted her in a way it would never accept anyone else. Xyra's voice broke through his thoughts. "This room, this sanctuary, is sacred to the Zyphorian people. It's meant for royal blood only. For centuries, no one, not even our greatest warriors, has been able to enter without permission." Ryan's confusion deepened. "But you said I shouldn't be here, and now you're saying I actually can be. That's the problem." Xyra's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "The chamber is rejecting everyone except you. No human has ever set foot in this place before. The technology here, it's ancient. Only someone who can tap into the deepest Zephyrian secrets can enter. Ryan looked at the walls again, the symbols glowing brighter, almost calling to him. There was something strange about it, something that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. How could a human like him be the one to enter? Then, what does it mean? Ryan asked, his voice a little shaky. Zyra hesitated, glancing at the guards who were still watching cautiously, then turned back to Ryan. I don't know, she admitted. It hasn't happened in centuries. No one knows why it's happening now. But whatever it means, it's not good. The walls suddenly gave off a high-pitched hum, and Ryan felt a strange sensation building inside him. It was almost as if the chamber itself was trying to communicate with him. He instinctively stepped back, but his foot brushed against the glowing symbols. A pulse of energy shot through the room, and the hum grew louder. Zyra's face went pale, her eyes widening in disbelief. No, it can't be. Before Ryan could ask what was going on, the chamber shuddered. The floor beneath their feet trembled as if something beneath the palace was waking up, something ancient and powerful. Zyra's hand reached out instinctively, her eyes locked on him. We need to leave now. But it was too late. The chamber was already changing, and Ryan was at the heart of it. The sudden pulse of energy surged through Ryan's body, sending a strange tingling sensation into his fingertips. He stumbled back as the chamber continued to hum, its walls now radiating an intense golden light. The air felt heavier, almost as if it were charged with something unknown. Ryan couldn't move, his feet frozen in place. Zyra, standing at his side, looked both terrified and fascinated. Her hands were raised, her eyes darting to the glowing symbols on the walls. This shouldn't be happening. Why is it reacting to you? Her voice trembled. Ryan tried to swallow the lump in his throat, but it was no use. The room felt alive, its power growing with each passing second. The symbols began to shift, rearranging themselves on the walls like they were alive, twisting and turning in response to him. Do you see that? Ryan asked, his voice shaky. Zyra didn't respond at first. She was too focused on the symbols that had now taken on an eerie, almost sentient glow. I see it, she murmured. But this is impossible. These symbols are ancient, older than the Zephyrian Empire itself. No one can decipher them, except for those who have royal blood. Ryan's eyes widened. Wait, you mean? Before he could finish, a low whisper filled the chamber. It wasn't from any person, but a soft, almost melodic voice that seemed to echo in his mind. He looked at Zyra, but she didn't seem to hear it. The voice spoke again, clear and urgent. Only the one who is chosen may enter. Only the one who holds the key may awaken. Ryan's heart raced. The voice was in his head, but it didn't sound like a threat. It felt warm, almost inviting. Yet, a part of him felt that something more dangerous was unfolding, something that was way beyond his understanding. What was that? He asked, his voice hoarse. Zyra's gaze flicked around the room, her brow furrowed in confusion. I don't know. That shouldn't be possible. She took a step back, her face pale. But you heard it too, didn't you? Ryan nodded, still trying to grasp the situation. Yeah, it was like the walls were speaking to me, like they were calling me. Zyra's expression shifted, her eyes narrowing. That's not just any voice. The walls are alive in a way. They're ancient. They're connected to something that has been dormant for centuries, something that's now waking up. Ryan could feel the temperature in the room rise, the walls glowing brighter, almost too bright. The voice returned, louder this time. The time has come. The path is clear. The chosen must lead. Zyra stepped back, trembling. We need to leave. Now. Ryan hesitated. Despite the panic rising in him, he couldn't tear his gaze away from the glowing symbols. They were beautiful in a way he couldn't describe, and the voice seemed to be guiding him, pulling him towards something he couldn't yet understand. But before he could respond, the ground beneath them shook again, more violently this time. The stone walls cracked, and the entire chamber seemed to groan in protest, as if something deep inside it had been disturbed. "We don't have time," Tyra shouted, grabbing his arm and pulling him toward the door. Ryan resisted for just a moment, but then, with a deep breath, he followed her. They had no idea what they had just unleashed, but one thing was certain. Things were never going to be the same again. Ryan and Syra ran through the twisting corridors of the Xiphorian palace, the walls vibrating as if they were being pushed by an unseen force. Every step they took was frantic, the air heavy with tension. Ryan's mind raced as he tried to piece together what had just happened. The chamber, the voice, the strange symbols, all of it felt like a dream, but the heavy thudding of his heart told him it was all too real. Zyra was ahead of him, her face a mixture of fear and determination. Her eyes flicked over her shoulder every few seconds, as though she half expected something or someone to catch up with them. "We have to hurry." Tyra's voice was urgent, but there was something in her tone that made Ryan pause. Was she afraid? The princess, the heir to the Xiphorian throne, was running through the palace like someone escaping a dangerous enemy. "What's going on? What was that voice?" Ryan asked, out of breath. Zedera shook her head, her silver hair trailing behind her like a comet's tail. "I don't know, but it's not just the chamber. Something bigger is happening." "That voice, it spoke to you, didn't it?" Ryan nodded. "It's like the room was alive." "Yes." Thyra's lips tightened, and her pace quickened. "It's more than just a room. It's part of an ancient system, an ancient prophecy. And now that you've entered, you've changed everything." Ryan felt his stomach twist. Changed everything. How? Before Zyra could respond, the palace guards appeared at the far end of the hall, blocking their path. There were dozens of them, all armed with weapons and expressions of pure anger. "Stop right there," one of the guards shouted, raising his weapon. Zedera held up a hand, her eyes glowing with authority. "Do not touch him." The guards hesitated, but their eyes shifted nervously to the princess. Tyra, despite her regal bearing, looked tense, her voice shaky. "We need to see the Empress. It's urgent." The guards exchanged unsure glances, but ultimately stepped aside, allowing them to pass. Syra moved quickly, and Ryan followed her, sensing the urgency in her every step. They'd reached the royal chambers, where the Empress, Syra's mother, awaited. The Empress was sitting on her throne, her regal figure draped in fine Xiphorian silk, but there was a sharpness in her gaze that could cut through steel. She did not stand when they entered. "You are late, Princess Syra." Her voice was calm, but there was an undeniable edge to it. "I warned you to stay away from that human." Zyra stepped forward, her face pale. "Mother, something happened in the chamber." "Ryan." "He." The Empress raised her hand, silencing her daughter. "I know." Her eyes shifted to Ryan, and for the first time, Ryan saw a flicker of something in her gaze. Fear. The prophecy was never meant to be triggered. Ryan blinked, his confusion growing. What prophecy? What's going on? The Empress stood slowly, her eyes now filled with uncertainty. "That room is part of a long-forgotten secret. The voice you heard is a warning that the time has come for change, and that change will not be kind to us. The Xiphorian Empire is built on a lie, and now the truth has found its way to you, human." Ryan felt the weight of her words pressing down on him. What was this truth? And why did he feel like he was the one meant to uncover it? The Empress's voice lowered. "You've awakened something ancient, something that no one was supposed to touch. And now we will all have to face the consequences." Ryan stood in the heart of the royal chamber, still processing the Empress's words. His mind raced, unable to fully grasp the magnitude of what had just been revealed. He had never thought of himself as anything special. just a regular human diplomat who had stumbled into something far beyond his understanding. And now, here he was, caught in the middle of an ancient Sci-Fi prophecy, with no clear way to get out of it. Zyra stood beside him, her expression one of conflict. She was the princess, the heir to the throne, yet she seemed just as uncertain as Ryan felt. The air between them was thick with unspoken questions, and as the Empress's words echoed in their minds, the weight of the situation seemed to grow heavier. You really think I'm part of this prophecy?" Ryan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The Empress's eyes flicked to Zyra before she turned her gaze back to Ryan. "The prophecy speaks of a time when the Zyphorian Empire will face a great change, one that no royal bloodline can prevent. It mentions an outsider, a human, who will either destroy us or change us forever." Zyra's face tightened as her mother spoke. "What does that mean for us?" she asked, her voice sharp. "Why is the prophecy warning of such destruction?" The Empress's eyes darkened. "It is the price of truth, Zyra. There are secrets buried within the foundation of this empire, secrets that, if revealed, will threaten everything we have built. And now, with Ryan here, those secrets can no longer stay hidden." Ryan's stomach twisted. "What secrets? What have you been hiding?" Zyra turned to him, her eyes softening for a moment. "There are ancient powers within the Zyphorian Empire. Powers that we, the royal family, have kept hidden from the rest of our people. Powers that could either save us or destroy us completely." Ryan's heart pounded as he struggled to understand the magnitude of her words. He was a mere diplomat. What role could he possibly play in the destruction or salvation of an entire empire? "I'm just a human," he said, his voice shaking. "I don't have any powers. I don't even understand what's going on." Zyra stepped closer to him, her voice soft yet firm. "But you have something that the Zyphorian Empire needs, something that no one else has, a connection to the prophecy. The walls spoke to you, Ryan. They chose you." Ryan shook his head, still struggling to understand. "I don't get it. Why me? Why a human?" Zyra reached out, her hand gently touching his arm. "You're not just any human. The prophecy says that only the one who is chosen can lead us to the truth, and that one is you. You and I. We are bound by something greater than either of us can comprehend." Ryan's heart raced, but there was something in her eyes, something he hadn't expected. Trust. Despite everything, despite the fear and the uncertainty, Zyra was choosing to trust him. They were in this together now. The connection between them was undeniable. The walls, the symbols, the voice, they had all led him to this moment. For the first time, Ryan realized that he wasn't just a bystander in this ancient conflict. He was part of it now. Whether he liked it or not, he was in the middle of something far bigger than anything he could have ever imagined. "All right," Ryan said, taking a deep breath. "I don't know what's going on, but I'm with you. I'll help you. Together, we'll figure this out." Zyra's expression softened, and a small, relieved smile tugged at the corners of her lips. "We're in this together, Ryan. No matter what happens next, we'll face it side by side." In that moment, as they stood together in the heart of the Zyphorian Empire, a bond had formed between them, one forged in the fire of prophecy, danger, and trust. It wasn't just about saving an empire anymore. It was about saving each other. The palace was no longer a safe place. The once proud and majestic Zyphorian halls now seemed to pulse with suspicion and danger, each shadow cast by the towering pillars feeling darker than it had before. Zyra and Ryan had just left the royal chambers, and the weight of what they'd learned pressed heavily on both of them. Despite their new bond, the world around them was changing fast. The prophecy had set things in motion, and there was no turning back. Ryan felt like a stranger in a land that was no longer welcoming. He had entered the palace on a simple diplomatic mission, but now it seemed like he was at the center of an ancient conflict, one that could tear the Zyphorian Empire apart. And yet, as much as he feared what was coming, He also knew that he couldn't just walk away. Zyra walked beside him, her posture stiff and eyes distant. The princess was no longer the confident, poised ruler he had met days ago. She was a woman caught between duty and destiny, and Ryan could see the weight of it in her every step. She wasn't just worried about her people or the Empire. She was terrified for them both. "We don't have much time," Zyra said, her voice low but urgent. "The moment the Empress realized you were involved in the prophecy, she began making plans. Not everyone in the Empire is happy about this." Ryan frowned, his mind racing. Plans? What kind of plans? Zyra's eyes darkened, and she glanced over her shoulder as if to make sure they weren't being followed. The Empress has always been the one to hold power, but there are others, factions within the Empire who believe it's time for a change. They see you, Ryan, as a threat to their control. Ryan's stomach churned. "So, they'd want to eliminate me." Zyra's expression hardened. "Not just you. They want to destroy everything the prophecy stands for. They believe that the secrets of the Zyphorian Empire are meant to remain hidden, and that anyone who tries to unveil them must be stopped." Ryan swallowed hard. He had never felt like more of an outsider than he did now. He wasn't just caught between two worlds. He was the catalyst for an empire's downfall. As they continued to walk, a soft footstep behind them made Ryan turn sharply. 3 Zyphorian guards had emerged from the shadows, their faces masked in cold determination. Ryan took a step back, instinctively putting himself in front of Zyra. "Princess Zyra, you are under arrest," one of the guards said, his voice emotionless. Zyra's eyes flashed. "For what?" "For trying to protect my people." Her tone was icy, but Ryan could hear the hint of panic beneath it. The guard stepped forward, raising a hand. "The council has spoken. You are no longer to interfere in matters concerning the prophecy. You and the human are to be detained until further orders." Ryan felt the air around them grow heavy, charged with the unmistakable threat of violence. But he couldn't back down. He wasn't about to let these guards take Zyra, or him, without a fight. "No one's taking us anywhere," Ryan said, his voice firm. "You can't just arrest us because you don't like what we're doing." The guards didn't respond with words. Instead, they moved quickly, drawing their plasma weapons and aiming them at the pair. Ryan felt his heart race, his palms sweaty. This wasn't a diplomatic conversation anymore. It was a fight for survival. Zyra stepped beside him, her eyes cold and determined. "Stay behind me," she whispered. Before Ryan could protest, she was already moving toward the guards with speed and precision. She didn't raise her own weapon, but her presence alone was enough to make the guards hesitate. She was royalty, after all, and they knew that defying her could mean grave consequences. "Leave us be," Zyra commanded, her voice echoing with authority. "If you have any loyalty to the Empire, you'll walk away." Ryan watched in amazement as the guards exchanged looks, clearly unsure of what to do. After a tense silence, one of them slowly lowered his weapon, signaling for the others to do the same. "You're making a mistake," the lead guard muttered, "but you won't get away with this, princess." With that, the guards turned and retreated into the shadows, leaving Zyra and Ryan standing in the middle of the corridor, both of them breathless from the encounter. "We don't have much time," Zyra said again, this time more urgently. "We have to find the truth before they find us." Ryan nodded. There was no turning back now. They were in this together, and there was only one thing left to do: uncover the secrets that could either save or destroy the Zyphorian Empire. The palace had become a dangerous place. The halls that once felt regal and welcoming now seemed haunted by the shadows of suspicion. Ryan could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. Every step they took seemed to be measured, as if they were being watched, as if the very walls were holding their breath. And all the while, the Zyphorian Empire was closing in around them. Ryan and Zyra moved quickly through the palace's maze of corridors, knowing that they didn't have much time. The guards had backed off for now, but they both knew that their escape wouldn't be easy. There were forces within the Empire who wanted them caught, wanted them silenced before they could uncover the truth of the prophecy. Ryan glanced over at Styra, her face grim, eyes locked forward with a look of determination. Her posture was tense, like a coiled spring, ready to snap. Despite her royal upbringing, Ryan could see the stress in her movements, the fear she was trying so hard to hide. This wasn't just a matter of saving herself anymore. It was about saving her people, her empire, and possibly the very future of Xiphoria. "We need to get to the vaults," Kyra said, her voice low. "The truth is hidden there. If we can get to the vaults, we might be able to stop the destruction." Ryan nodded, though his mind was racing. The vaults. What did they contain that was so important? He didn't have all the answers, but he knew one thing. He couldn't let Syra face this alone. She had trusted him, and he was going to stand by her no matter what. As they rounded a corner, the sound of footsteps reached their ears. Ryan's heart skipped a beat. Guards. Zyra's eyes widened, and she grabbed Ryan's arm, pulling him quickly into a nearby side hallway. They pressed themselves against the cool stone walls, holding their breath, listening to the approaching footsteps. The guards were getting closer, and their voices were low but urgent. "This way," Zyra whispered, her hand on Ryan's arm as she led him further down the narrow corridor. The sound of the guards grew fainter as they moved, but they weren't out of danger yet. They couldn't stay hidden forever. Ryan's heart raced in his chest. He had no idea where they were heading, but he trusted Syra's instincts. She was the princess, after all, and if anyone knew the palace's secrets, it was her. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Syra stopped in front of a small, unmarked door. She glanced around quickly, making sure no one was watching, and then turned the handle. The door creaked open, revealing a dark staircase leading down into the depths of the palace. "This is it," Syra said, her voice barely audible. "The vaults are below us. No one knows about this passage. We'll be safe here." Ryan followed Syra down the stairs, the air growing colder with each step. The deeper they went, the more it felt like they were entering the heart of something ancient, something sacred. The walls were lined with symbols Ryan didn't understand, symbols that seemed to glow faintly as they passed. After what felt like an age, they reached the bottom of the stairs. In front of them stood a massive metal door, covered in intricate designs and locked with an enormous mechanism. Kyra's eyes gleamed with both fear and determination as she stepped forward and placed her hand on the door. "Here," she said, "the answers we need are inside. The truth of the prophecy, the secrets of the Xiphorian Empire. It's all here." Ryan watched as Syra worked with a small device from her belt. She pressed a few buttons, and after a moment, the mechanism clicked open with a loud clank. The heavy door groaned and slowly began to open, revealing the darkness inside. Zyra's face was illuminated by the dim light from the hallway behind them. "This is it, Ryan, the final piece of the puzzle." But before they could enter, a loud crash echoed down the hallway, followed by the sound of footsteps, this time not from the guards. It was something more ominous. Someone else was coming. Zyra's eyes widened in fear. "We're not alone. We have to hurry." Ryan stepped forward, pulling the door open wider, and together they entered the vaults, uncertain of what awaited them, but knowing that the secrets they were about to uncover could change everything. The massive door to the vaults shut behind them with a heavy final thud, sealing them in darkness. Ryan and Syra were surrounded by the faint glow of ancient symbols on the walls, each one pulsing gently as if alive. The air was thick with the weight of history, as though the entire Xiphorian Empire's secrets had been buried here, waiting to be uncovered. Syra stepped forward, her hand brushing the walls, her eyes scanning the surroundings. "This place is older than the palace itself," she said, her voice a mix of awe and fear. "These vaults are the heart of our empire, where everything is kept. Everything." Ryan's heart raced. He had no idea what they would find here, but he felt the gravity of the moment. Every step they took seemed to bring them closer to a revelation that could change everything, not just for the Zyphorian Empire, but for both of them. Zyra approached a large stone pedestal at the center of the room. It was covered with dust and strange markings, but there was something familiar about it. As she reached out and placed her hand on the pedestal, a soft hum filled the air. The markings began to glow brighter, and the room seemed to come alive. Ryan stood back, unsure of what was happening. The symbols on the walls flickered as if reacting to Zyra's touch. A soft, eerie whisper filled the space, too quiet for him to understand. But it made his skin crawl. This place was ancient, and it was clear that Zyra was tapping into something far beyond what he could comprehend. Then, just as quickly as the humming had started, it stopped. Zyra's eyes widened. She stepped back from the pedestal, shaking her head. This shouldn't be possible. Ryan stepped closer. What's happening? What did you find? Zyra's gaze met his, her expression pale and troubled. I found the truth. The thing my mother and the council have been hiding for generations. But it's not what I expected. She paused for a moment, the weight of her words sinking in. Ryan could feel the tension building, thick and almost unbearable. The Zyphorian Empire wasn't built on the ideals we were taught. Zyra continued, her voice trembling. We weren't the rulers of the stars by our own merit. We've been lying to our people for centuries. Ryan frowned. What do you mean? How could your empire have built an entire civilization on lies? Zyra's eyes flicked nervously toward the entrance, as if she feared someone would appear from the shadows. The royal bloodline. It was never truly royal. The first ruler of Zyphoria wasn't even a Zyphorian. They were human. One of your ancestors, Ryan. Ryan's heart stopped for a beat. Wait, what? But that doesn't make sense. Zyra stepped back toward the pedestal, running her fingers over the surface. The prophecy. It wasn't meant to choose a savior. It was meant to choose someone who would uncover the truth, someone who would be forced to face the legacy of what we are. You and I were both chosen by the same bloodline, Ryan. The same bloodline that was hidden, erased by the royal family centuries ago. Ryan shook his head, trying to process what Zyra was saying. So, my ancestors built your empire. But why didn't anyone know about this? Zyra's face twisted with pain. The truth was buried, erased from history by my own family. They didn't want anyone to know that humans were once the foundation of our empire. If it got out, everything we've built would crumble. And now, with you here, that truth is coming to light. Just then, footsteps echoed from the hallway outside the vaults. They were heavy and deliberate, unmistakable. Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. They weren't alone anymore. Zyra turned quickly, her eyes filled with urgency. We don't have much time. Before Ryan could respond, the entrance to the vaults burst open, revealing a figure he hadn't expected to see. The Empress. Her regal appearance was gone, replaced by a cold, calculating stare. Behind her, a group of guards stood, their weapons drawn. Zyra, the Empress said, her voice icy. You should have listened. You were never supposed to uncover the truth. Zyra's face hardened. You lied to me, Mother. You lied to the entire empire. The Empress stepped forward, a sad smile on her lips. I did what was necessary to keep our people safe. The truth is a dangerous thing, my daughter. And now, it's too late. Ryan and Sarah exchanged a glance, realizing they were no longer just running from the guards. They were running from the very heart of the empire itself. And the truth, it was far darker than either of them could have imagined. The tension in the vaults was palpable, the air thick with the weight of truth and betrayal. Ryan stood beside Zyra, their backs to the cold stone wall, as the Empress and her guards advanced slowly into the room. The Empress's gaze was filled with something more than anger. There was a chilling sense of finality in her eyes. It was clear now that this wasn't just about uncovering the truth. This was about the future of the Zyphorian Empire. You think you can just take this empire apart with your questions, Syra? The Empress's voice was sharp, cutting through the silence. You think that human is the key to saving us, to destroying everything we've built. Zyra's jaw tightened. What we've built is a lie, Mother. Everything, every word you've taught us, every tradition you've enforced, is based on deception. The people have the right to know who we really are. The Empress sneered. The people don't need the truth, Zyra. They need stability. And right now, that stability is in my hands. Yours too, if you just understand. You cannot change everything. Ryan took a step forward, unable to stay silent. Your people deserve to know the truth, Empress. Hiding it won't save them. You've built an empire on lies. And the moment the truth comes out, everything will fall apart. But you can still change that. You don't have to keep hiding. The Empress's eyes narrowed at him, her expression cold. You don't understand, human. You never will. She turned back to her daughter. Zyra, if you stand with him, you will be cast out. Your place in this empire will be over. You will become nothing. Zyra's gaze hardened, her voice unwavering. Then I'll stand with him. I'll stand for the truth. For a moment, everything felt still. The two women locked eyes, the battle for control over the future of Zyphoria hanging in the balance. The Empress, the ruler of an empire built on secrets and power, and her daughter, the princess who had discovered the shattering truth, the human who was part of the legacy of it all. Suddenly, the Empress gestured to the guards behind her, who stepped forward. Then you leave me no choice, she said, her voice cold with authority. Without warning, the guards raised their weapons, aimed at Syra and Ryan. But Syra was faster. With a swift motion, she reached for a hidden weapon at her side, a plasma blade, and in a flash, she deflected the incoming fire. Run, Syra shouted to Ryan, her voice fierce with urgency. Ryan didn't hesitate. They turned and bolted for the far side of the vaults, the sound of plasma fire echoing behind them. The guards were quick to follow, but Syra was quicker. She led them down a narrow, winding path that Ryan had never seen before, a hidden corridor only she seemed to know. We need to get to the Citadel, Zyra, Ryan panted, trying to keep up with her swift pace. It's the only place where we can get to the heart of the Empire's control. The Council can't ignore us there. I know, Zyra said through gritted teeth, but we can't do this alone. I can't do this alone. Ryan glanced at her, his breath ragged. You don't have to be alone. We'll face this together. You're the future of Zyphoria, Zyra. As they reached the end of the corridor, they saw the exit, but standing before them was a group of rebels, dressed in the tattered uniforms of the opposition forces. They were armed but looked just as nervous as the princess and the human who had just appeared at their doorstep. What are you doing here? One of the rebels demanded, holding up his weapon. We need your help, Zyra said urgently. The Empress is planning to destroy the truth. We have to stop her. The future of the Empire is at stake. The rebels exchanged uneasy glances. After a long moment, one of them lowered his weapon. We'll stand with you. For the people. For the truth. Ryan's heart surged with hope. It wasn't just Zyra and him anymore. There were others who were ready to fight. Together, they had a chance to expose the truth. Together, they could change the fate of the Zyphorian Empire. But the battle was far from over. They had just begun to fight for the future, and the Empress would do everything in her power to stop them. As they made their way toward the Citadel, the war had already begun, and it would shake the Empire's future forever. The Citadel loomed before them, towering over the city like the heart of the Empire. The ancient walls were lined with glowing symbols, but this time they felt ominous, as if they were watching the people who came to challenge them. Ryan and Syra stood at the foot of the Citadel, surrounded by the small band of rebels who had agreed to join them in the fight for the truth. Zyra was silent for a moment, her eyes fixed on the Citadel's entrance. She had always known this day would come, but now that it was here, it felt both like a dream and a nightmare. The Empress was no longer just a ruler. She was the embodiment of everything Zyra had been taught to believe. And now she had to overthrow her. "We need to move quickly," Ryan said, breaking the silence. "If we wait too long, the Empress will lock down the entire city. The truth will be buried, and everything will be lost." Zyra nodded, her grip tightening on her weapon. "You're right. We don't have time to waste." They pushed forward, moving swiftly through the narrow streets that led to the Citadel. The rebels kept close, their eyes alert for any sign of danger. The palace guards were still on high alert, but they had the element of surprise, for now. As they reached the Citadel's entrance, Zyra paused, her hand on the great door. It was a symbol of power, but now, to her, it felt like a door to freedom. The door that had once been a symbol of authority and control was now the gateway to change. "Once we're inside, there's no turning back," Zyra said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "We take control of the council chambers, and we make sure the truth is heard." Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder, offering silent support. He knew that this moment wasn't just about saving an empire. It was about saving Zyra's future, and their future together. With a single push, the doors opened, revealing the vast council hall beyond. The room was grand, but there was no time to admire its beauty. The council chamber was full of Zyphorian officials, their eyes immediately turning toward the unexpected intruders. At the far end of the room, sitting on a throne, was the Empress, her expression cold and unforgiving. She had been expecting this moment, and Ryan could see the rage burning in her eyes. "Zyra, you have no idea what you're doing," the Empress said, her voice calm but filled with authority. "You are throwing everything away for a human and a lie. Do you think they'll follow you? Do you think they'll stand with you?" Zyra's gaze never wavered. "I'm not just fighting for myself, Mother. I'm fighting for the people. For the truth. You've spent your life hiding the truth from them. And now it's time they know what this empire was truly built on." The Empress stood, her posture regal but tense. "You think they'll accept that their ancestors were human, that our greatness was built on a lie? You're a fool." Ryan stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "You're the fool if you think your people won't stand with the truth. They deserve to know what they've been hiding. Zyphoria is built on strength, and the people will rise to that. You're the one who's been lying to them, keeping them in the dark." The council members exchanged uncertain glances. Some looked to the Empress, while others seemed to question her authority. The tension in the room was palpable, but the first cracks in the Empress's rule were starting to show. "You've betrayed me, Zyra," the Empress said softly. "You and this human. You've turned your back on everything we've worked for." Zyra's voice softened. "I've turned my back on nothing. I've found the truth, and now I will fight for it." Ryan felt his heart race as the first spark of change lit in the eyes of the council members. There was a shift in the air, a growing sense that the old guard of Zyphoria was losing its grip. This was the moment everything would change, the moment the Zyphorian Empire would either crumble under the weight of its lies or rise with the truth at its core. "You've already lost," Zyra whispered to her mother, the words a final blow. "The future of Zyphoria belongs to those who dare to face the truth." With that, the doors to the council chamber were thrown open, and the rebels marched in, joining Zyra and Ryan. Together, they stood against the Empress, against the lies that had held the empire in darkness for so long. In that moment, Ryan realized that it wasn't just about the prophecy anymore. It wasn't about the past or the future. It was about change. Real, lasting change. And no one, not even the Empress, could stop it. The truth was finally out. And with it, the empire would be reborn.